Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. In case you're just joining us, we continue reviewing the latest news making headlines, at least a fraction of what you can expect in today's dailies. As usual, we have with us the Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, and the Daily Nation, and my panelists right here in studio, Kariuki Ngunjiri, Daniel Orogo, and Suleiman Bashir, lawyer advocate. Daniel, right before the break, we were deliberating on the latest developments in Mount Kenya, specifically Kirinyaga County. What's your analogy, according to what Ngunjiri mentioned before the break?
I was just really disputing some of the issues Ngunjiri was mentioning.
Kindly voice them, yeah.
We in this set with Bashir agreed that there is a lot of populism with UDA in not only in Kirinyaga but also a greater central Kenya. The idea, and I asked this officer, the idea that there is a crop of many political parties in that area is something that also needs to get the attention of the guys who are watching political turns, because it seems that there is a way in which fragmentation is being systematically targeted in central Kenya. And Waiguru was on record. She said that you can rent, but you can't buy. So this sudden, are we seeing guys renting parties, and people in central Kenya to fragment the voting bloc?
What you refer to fragmentation is democracy to others.
I mean, probably that would be democracy, but in the phase where some political heavyweights are urging, people to avoid coming up with so many political parties, to unite under certain political parties. And that is also what I was going to say, because one of the issues, Martha was on record saying that the caucus is very critical and would vilify anybody who is coming up to avoid the issues of people approaching with the political party. And I think he was referring to, UDA, when she said that there is a scare that everybody who wants to join a party would be asked to fold the party. And you think, the thing is that there are lessons that were learned in 2017.
Okay.
You remember the 12 political parties that were collapsed to form, Greater Jubilee. And I think there are regrets and lessons that are learned, that anybody in that area, even in the whole of the country, and I have the ideology that shouldn't approach any political outfit by collapsing the individual parties.
Okay.
Yesterday was a very candid discussion here, and I watched it through when Moses Kuria was very vocal about the issue of party democracy, the issue that somebody and the deputy president would want to force different political heavyweights to fold their political parties and join UDA. I think even as it posed as a way of nationalism and trying to have a unitary government, that poses a threat to democracy itself, because then it would be very difficult for people to fold their parties. And parties are formed by a manifesto, parties are formed on an ideology. The moment you break them, then I think systematically, that becoming a threat to democracy latently. And you mentioned the face of Martha. And I think, let me have a few time to talk about this, because Martha was the alternative of the DP in 2007. That was the only voice that could match the deputy president. By that time was William Ruto for ODM. Remember the scenes that were happening at KICC on the disputed 2007 elections. And I agree with Ngujiri that it was hell-bent on Martha. Remember how she was referred as the only man in the cabinet of Mwai Kibaki, which means that she was very strong and adherence to constitution by that time, and was hell-bent in making sure that that kind of, grand coalition government would have, implement some of the issues. I think her face scares, different political leaders in that region. Well, I believe that Martha might not really even declare that she is running for, Kirinyaga, maybe not. But I think her, return to the political scene as a spokesperson is posing a threat to different, political heavyweights in that region. So this is why I say that it is important to say that, and I like what she says, we cannot be taken aback in this country that a country that gains, multi-party democracy, a country that allows pluralism of political parties, you do not want to safeguard that and ask them to fold. And I think finally she's also saying that regardless, Moses Kuria hinted it here also last time, that, you know, people from central Kenya, regardless of political parties, they are forging towards interest-based kind of ideology and politics. And they would not really be swayed aside by parties, but they would speak one to safeguard their interest when the time comes. I think that is important. Okay. I think that is democratic, and I think that should be allowed.
You see, Jesse, there's one very important point that everyone here must understand. Political parties are the only anchors that can be able to build a stable government. Coalitions in history have never done that. A coalition is a business of numbers. Coalitions or political parties coming together is only with only one intention, that is to win elections, and that is to bring and build a majority together. Okay. But a political party has structures at the grassroots, and this is why we are saying that in Mount Kenya, we are interested in the business of having a political party, because beyond that item called elections, we need an administration. We need environment issues to be tackled by the political party. We need issues of women, diverse groups, youth. We need issues of making sure that we have vibrancy at the lowest level in the villages. Last voter in the last village. All right. That is what we are talking about. Okay. So this business of telling us that we must every time have this corner of political party and another one on this side has only one meaningful agenda, that is to win elections. Beyond that, the political party is the one that has the capacity to run the affairs of the country. You must understand that.
Suleiman, as you heard your voice, I think he's painting an ideal picture. We all know political parties barely last the 5-year lifetime. They're conferred to as special purpose vehicles. The ideology might be missing, but the goal is to push for presidency. Add your voice to this particular discourse, even as we shift focus to northeastern Kenya as well. Yeah.
I find what Ngunjiri has said fairly sensible in one way, and I do not agree with him on the other part, of it. When he says that the coalitions are formed for a certain cause, that makes sense, but I think he seems to say that political parties are formed for certain positive. I think both of them are formed for certain purposes. It is to ascend to a certain seat. That is the reality within the African setting. But ideally, a political party in mature democracy, you are supposed to be maybe vie on a certain political party. When you ascend a certain seat, you are supposed to fulfill the aspirations of that party. But that is not what is happening with us. What has happened with us is you form a political party, and that is it. Whether you win the election or not, tomorrow you again think of forming another one. But I think, Jesse, one of the things that I wanted to also maybe put forth is that Anne Waiguru vied against Martha Karua in the previous election. By then, Anne Waiguru had just a very, very tainted, dark past. That was, she was maligned with corruption issues and scandals. But on the other part, Martha Karua, a reformist, a top legal mind, a former smart constitutional minister, vied against Waiguru at the time using her own political party, the Na Kenya party. The main reason as to why, or the main issue that made Anne Waiguru defeat by then Martha Karua was the political party, which was the Jubilee Party. We need to really appreciate that positive thing. So Anne Waiguru again believes that there is a certain political party that should be identified with the Mount Kenya region for her to win that seat. And that political party is not the UDA. You know, the UDA is just a populist theory that we are being fed by those who are interested in putting forth its message. So Anne Waiguru still shall not, in my belief, shall not be a member of the UDA, because she needs to really find which party can be identified with the people of the Mount Kenya. I repeat, that is not the UDA party.
And which party is it?
For now, we may not be able to say really what that party will be, because the people of the Mount Kenya, when you look at it, there is the senior-most political leader from that region, that is the president at the moment. Once his term will be ending, he will be making certain pronouncements. I believe those pronouncements shall have a lot of influence as to how the politics of the mountain should shape. I really believe in that. And the kind of pronouncement he shall make shall be hell-bent on the kind of developments he shall have made at the region.
Kindly let him finish his point. Yeah.
I think now, for me, what I believe in is we have a very, very bad problem with those who are propagandists. Today, they tell you, the youth are facing this problem, the women are facing these issues, and now those are the UDA populists. This problem did not start yesterday. It was there. You're not telling us that you're going to address this. You're going to address this in this way or that way. What is basically happening is we have political party aspirants telling the people, hey, I want to vie on this seat, give me the seat, I will use those 5 years to plunder your resources, and I will walk away. That is basically what the people of the mountain are being told. What will happen is, when the right time comes, the senior-most politician, it's not even the speaker, it is the president from that region, shall be in a position to lead his people. And I really find a lot of politics in his silence at the moment. He is waiting for the most opportune moment, and the best way to appreciate him at that time will be what he shall have done for the people of Kenya and for the mountain. And I believe he shall have something to share with them, and that will change.
So you don't believe there's any revolt towards the president as it is? Many argue that the state of the economy might work against his political macho-ness
that is across
Kenya.
The country, you know. That's across the country. Okay. You know, the problem that people of Kenya are facing across the country, you know, there's drought in Northeastern, the tea farmers in Central are facing certain problems, the sugar farmer in Western is having certain problems. Okay. There is the national problem that we're having with the government of the day, and there is the political aspect of it that shall be identified with the Mount Kenya region. When we talk of the politics of the mountain, the president shall be right at the center of it. But when we talk about the failed economy, that is a problem that the entire country...
I also wanted to...
When I listen to this guy here...
Can I, so that you respond to all of us, because
Could we kindly have some order here?
Yes.
Okay.
Jesse,
for our viewers, let me ask the question. Let me ask the question.
Yes.
Gunjiri, as you advise or add your voice, there's the third in command, you know, speaker, and he's just joined the Democratic Party. Add your voice to that, because we can't talk about Kirinyaga till the show ends.
But you see, when I listen to this guy here,
Bashir, my name.
Yes, it seems to me he takes Kenya like a monarchy. This country is not a monarchy. We are a democratic state, and the people of Mount Kenya will have their own time to make a decision. Even the personalities that you mentioned have in the past been quoted as saying that the people of Kenya will decide on who shall become their next president. That is a fact. I also want to tell you...
Which we need to give them time to see whether they have done something.
I also want to advise Waiguru. If the kind of advice that you are going to listen to is like the one that is coming from Bashir,
surely, let's not demean people here.
Be brutal and savage.
If that's what you're saying. Let's cross over.
Let me come to your question. Let me come to your question. Let me answer this question. You asked me about the Speaker of the National Assembly. I acknowledge that the Speaker has been able to bring out a certain theme of trying to offer direction to the people of Mount Kenya. Okay. He has tried. He has done a good job in advancing that cause. I think that he has made several trips to certain places, and which has also elevated his position. But I also think that Speaker Muturi has yet to fit into what the people of Mount Kenya would want from a leader. I think some of the statements that Speaker Muturi has been making have been subtle. In Mount Kenya, they are called komerera, people who are neither, they are called lukewarm. They are neither here nor here.
Which statements are these?
Playing safe. So the people of Mount Kenya...
It might be due to his capacity as speaker. He can't play too much politics, surely.
Of course, yes. But the people of Mount Kenya want a Dindi Nyoro, want someone who is playing radical politics.
I think your point is across. Daniel, as we finalize on this show,
I just wanted to be brief on this, that I think we have tinkered the kind of discussion to see that, you know, Anne Waiguru is just thinking about joining UDA. Just for the purposes of fairness, and I know the people are shouting UDA, UDA. There are other presidential candidates that have reached out to this region. And I think for the purposes of fairness, and I'm not insinuating it, but I'm saying that we in that region would also listen to other political leaders. I mean, to avoid this kind of, you know, this one this way. Raila has been in that region and has equally talked to Anne Waiguru, and I think that is open to her. The Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, you know, has reached out to Anne, and I think even the Honorable Gideon Moi to sometimes have held a discussion with Anne Waiguru. And I think for the people of Mount Kenya, it could be very important for them, like I said, to begin to think about what is affecting them.
Okay.
And I think the only person for me that provides that is Honorable Musalia Mudavadi in the campaign, because all these regions, and Bashir has talked about it, the whole economy is down. You know, there needs to be somebody who revives that economy. There needs to be somebody who thinks about, you know, post-COVID and put the country back to economic trajectory. So I think it's important that even as we throw this discussion in the air, let us also consider that this region must also listen to other political leaders, weigh the options, and decide what is the direction. Apart from populism, you know, apart from, you know, propaganda, like my colleague has said, it's important for that region to sober up.
Okay. Bashir, we need to shift from Mount Kenya. With finality, what's happening in northeastern Kenya right now? There seems to be factions, at least 3 factions. Is this just the beginning, or do you envision a unified political front from northeastern going forward?
I think there's a lot of hope in what we can say in northeastern. You see, when you come across different political parties that are coming from that region that is identified with the people of the northeastern region, I think it's a shift from our past. You know, the northeastern has a very long history of lacking a political party. I think this is the start of a conversation that will give the region a good political party that they shall rally behind at some point.
Not a forum, a political party.
A political party at some point, yes. Right now we have seen some movements. I think there are some movements. There's also the new political party that is identified with the Mandela governor. It is the UDM party. I think there were changes with respect to the officials and all that. But I think, Jesse, we ask ourselves as the people of, again, the North, if a certain political party that is identified with the northeastern region, how will it be beneficial to the people there? I think the relevance or the importance with that will be, the people will have an opportunity to use that party to now negotiate with the serious presidential contenders, to tell them, look, we have this number of voters. What is it that you shall give us when you ascend to the presidency? And that will be in a way of maybe forging or putting for their interest. You know, this is an area that has largely been affected by questions of insecurity, drought, and all that. So I think the political party shall bring the people together, give them a bigger voice. You know, all along we have been a good menu for the likes of Kinongunjiri. All they saw the people of the North will be, this is a recipe that we need to serve ourselves with. But right now, I think a political party will bring the people on the table. We shall have the same strength that the likes of UD and the others are having to enable us, audit them and ask them, look, you are the serious presidential contender. In the event you win the presidency, what is in the interest of the people that you will give us? Okay. I think this is important. But now the problem we're having is, we're having some challenges whereby some leaders actually have been trying to disintegrate the region a bit. I think the question of party politics, it is a right, it is a democracy, but I think the interest of the larger people should be up there, and I think the whole idea should be to organize the people with a view to maybe protecting their interests more and more.
Okay, well noted. Gentlemen, let's shift focus away from politics, because we can talk about this time and time again, and it's a never-ending conversation. Let's talk about the recommendations against the KEMSA boss, Manjari, and the procurement directors over the lost billions of shillings from KEMSA. The PIC finally gave these recommendations. Ngunjiri, will we finally see prosecution? Because at the end of the day, that's the mandate of these committees. They'll recommend, but the prosecution place, that's usually the issue. What's your take on this?
You see, in our country, the institution of parliament has a very important role in making sure that they are the eyes and the ears of the people who give them that power. And when they go to parliament, we expect them to oversight on the executive. I think that we have a problem in the setting of the architecture of the role of parliament in our governance system. Because parliament is a very strong institution on paper. And like from the mothers of all parliaments across even Europe, you look at Westminster, you can see a parliament that has had a very, very important role into where that nation is and making sure that some of the issues that are discussed in that house are implemented and are followed to the letter to make sure that the decisions of parliament have been anchored in the day-to-day running of government. But here in Kenya, it is very common for parliamentarians to be used as rubber stamps and also to be used as people who will just sit there for formality, question someone on media for public gallery, but after that, the processes that follow do not even take heed after what was discussed or what was agreed in Parliament. And so what will be done after this? I think that it has to be a deliberate effort that comes from not just the people who are at the helm of the leadership of the country, but also support from various diverse groups like the civil society to work closely with the Parliament so that we can ensure that some of these issues do not get buried just after the people in question leave the House of Parliament. And so, for this case of KEMSA, I think that the wait has been palpable. Kenyans have been waiting for these reports and everything for quite some time.
I mean, the president even gave an ultimatum.
Yes, the president gave an ultimatum. The problem here is the course of Parliament in all these issues. I mean, we talk of judiciary independence, and if judiciary can be able to cancel BBI, Parliament should also at least have some powers, even if it means that they will be involved in petitioning or sanctioning these people from office, just in case they have...
They don't have that.
No. I mean, using other bodies like the EACC and the DPP's office, Parliament should be a very strong institution because they are the ones that literally look at the affairs of the people. And if we don't have a Parliament, then it means that the Kenyan people are exposed. The judiciary doesn't work necessarily directly for the political interest of the people of Kenya. The judiciary stands for a certain doctrine of fairness. But Parliament is a body that must now be strengthened by perhaps even soldering them with people like in the civil society, like Dan here.
In Parliament.
Okay. Let's go to Bashir first, because he's the lawyer in this group. Because when it comes to prosecution, I think that's where we drop the ball. I don't know what point he was trying to push across, because Parliament, all has to do with the committees is recommendation, and EACC and the likes pick up this issue. So from where we sit, has Parliament done its part? And are we looking to EACC now to actually play its part as well? What's your take?
Jesse, I think with respect to what has been happening at KEMSA, this scandal happened a few years ago. At first, when it happened, certain people were suspended from office. The head of state addressed Kenyans, gave the investigative bodies, was it 60 days? I think, yeah, a number of days. Nothing happened.
Actually,
21 days, sorry. Nothing happened. From there, a file was forwarded by the EACC upon completion of investigation to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. The DPP returned that file back to the investigative body to, I think, to do further investigation. That is actually what has been happening. As that was happening, the Public Investment Committee has been summoning those certain culpable people. They were being questioned, and that is what has seen that that's the product of this report.
Yeah.
Now we ask ourselves, what is it that has happened with respect to this report? This report is a recommendation on this investigative body, especially the EACC, to investigate certain persons for certain conducts. So it is a mere recommendation, and Parliament has, at this instance, played its oversight role. But Jesse, I have a problem with this report. The problem I have it has taken a lot of time. Every single time the committee has been sitting down, it was doing so at the expense of the taxpayer, because the members of Parliament are paid a certain allowance per session. Now, this report does not give ultimatums. It doesn't ask the EACC to maybe investigate the head of procurement and the former CEO and the former board chair within a certain time. Now the problem we have is that open-end recommendation.
Do they have the powers to do that?
They can. This is a recommendation. The Parliament is doing so in its capacity as oversight body. It has the power to summon the CEO, EACC, tomorrow to ask him, what have you done about our report? So the Parliament can recommend that the EACC initiates investigation and completes within a certain period of time. That has not happened. So what we can see right now is a committee that has sat on a certain report. It has released the report well enough good, a good report that maybe places certain persons at the center of this scandal. But I think the gap I'm having with them and what they need to do next time is let us have the question of timeline. Ask these bodies to do this investigation within a certain period of time. Now, if that happens and a good investigation is done by the EACC and a good file is forwarded to the DPP, we have seen the courts of law convicting certain persons. So we should not put the blame on the judiciary. The judiciary is a neutral person to this. It doesn't side with the EACC. It neither sides with these individuals. The judiciary is is an umpire. It's a neutral person. It will make its decision based on the evidence that shall be relied on by the EACC. So the ball is on the court of EACC to relook at the file that was sent back by the DPP, to use the report that was forwarded by Parliament, because this was a very, very good, vibrant public investment committee that has questioned all these people. Yeah. So on the strength of this, the EACC should collect its evidence. Once it is forwarded to the DPP, I assure you, we have very, very good judiciary. The problem we're having with Kenyans, the likes of my brother, is we appreciate the judiciary when it cancels issues to do with the taxes like the other day. That is when we view the judiciary as a protector of the interest of the people. What the judiciary does is, it plays a very neutral role that makes its decision on the basis of the evidence proffered by the parties. The ball is on the court of EACC. It is up to EACC to use this report, to use the rejected file, put together its evidence, and I assure you, if that happens, certain persons will be convicted of the criminal offences that they are charged with.
Okay, speaking of powers in Parliament, Daniel, add your voice to the KEMSA debacle. But equally, just yesterday, we saw senators summon C.S. Muñez and Charles Keter, and they snubbed the summons, unfortunately. And they've actually recommended censure against these two CSs. Well, what's your take on Parliament's power right now? Because we've seen this pull and push between members of the executive and Parliament on one side. There are those who snub their summons, and perhaps that's why they were agitating for a parliamentary system. Who knows? Add your voice to this.
Well, I think the reason as to why I wanted to come in before Bashir was that I wanted to get the annexure between the justice system, the ideal and the reality in this country. And probably, like he's hinted, that one, we have an institution, Parliament, that are basically given the role of oversight. And one of the discussions we should be having as a country is that wherever we have parliamentary committees, to what extent is their powers? What can they do? Either to sense, and what extent beyond, questioning and recommendations. Just ideally, any parliamentary committee is quasi-judicial in nature. And wherever you are called upon to someone to answer the charges, I think we would revisit and begin to have a national conversation then. What is the role of parliamentary committees beyond just making hearings and making recommendations? And like you've hinted, that it has come a time in this country when the role of parliamentary committees looked so, obvious to people. It looked so, formality. In a sense that you can be asked to appear, and as a member of executive, you snub the charges, and probably you go away with it. How many times, not only the two cabinet secretaries you mentioned, even the cabinet secretary for Interior has a struggle to appear before the Justice Committee to answer charges. And it took other interested parties to compel him to appear for questioning within these committees. I think it's important, even as we proceed as a country, and that we find a framework in which we give more powers to our parliamentary committees, not only to go and make recommendations and sit hoping that other investigating authorities would expedite that to justice, but also make sure that it fast-track to finality. And I think on this scandal, probably on KEMSA, and others, we are having others, this is in context. We've had scandals that have swindled the public. And I think last time we were here, we saw that, even, other Rio scandals, somebody was made to answer the charges. But again, it could be very important for us to give justice where it's due. The role of investigative authorities in this country to make the case watertight. This is also very important. We've seen cases that have reached the judiciary, and I agree with Bashir, that even as much as we are piling a lot of pressures for judiciary to be independent, there is interpretation. There is proceeding to prosecute based on the evidence adduced, the strength in the case. But if we are having a shoddy investigation and presenting it to the corridors of justice, we suffer the risk of having these cases being referred back for either proper investigation or thrown out because of lack of proper investigation.
Yeah.
And lastly, I think it is important that we revisit procurement laws in this country. We are having lacuna in the law that even politicians and public servants are doing business in this country. And the more we avoid to talk about it, the more we avoid to revisit these cases, then we are having public service, people in the executive doing businesses, making procurement and doing business with the government.
Yeah.
And then there is a conflict of interest. They are conflicted definitely.
Okay.
And it will be even difficult for investigation because there is an interest in investigation.
All right.
They would interfere with investigation.
All right.
So I think it's important for us as a country also to tighten our regulation when it comes to assets and when it comes to recovery. But lastly, also on the recovery of assets. The Assets Recovery Authority also needs to be put into spotlight and focus because the much we are bringing back that have been recovered is definitely unproportional to what was stolen. I mean, you've seen the cases that, the penalties that have been given to guys who within an hour can raise millions and, find their way out of courts. So I think it's important for us as a country also to begin to seriously think about what is the asset recovery, issues, how much should be returned, and even audit what has been returned to the public coffers in the cases that have swindled the public.
Okay, just before you give your comment, he's raised something about perhaps the role of committees, if you can enable them to do more. Is this possible under the current dispensation?
Jesse, I think the powers of Parliament are enough. We do not need to give them any more powers.
Okay.
Their powers are 3, and those powers are enough. What we need to do is, instead of speaking of giving the parliamentarians more and more powers, we should give more strength and support to the institutions. These are independent institutions such as the ACC, Office of the DPP, the DCIO. These are good institutions that are already doing a good job. All we need to give them is enough time, good support, good resource, and I think that is what we need to do. When you look at the countries that are doing well, they have had a lot of faith in the institutions. So we should have faith in our institutions, and actually that is when we shall see that some of these issues will be put to an end. But I think on the part of Parliament and the powers it does have, those are enough powers. Any powers, any support, any laws that we need to relook at with a view to maybe tightening these issues should be focused on the institutions. Yes,
okay, since we're talking about Parliament, even as you add your voice, I'm just looking at a story here on page 15, how Duale forced 8% VAT peel down the throats of members of Parliament. And at times we hear criticism pointed towards this current Parliament that they might be an appendage of the executive. So in terms of independence, kindly look at this and evaluate this. How did we get into this VAT mess in terms of not putting a blame game, but Parliament doing its role of holding the executive accountable? What's your take on that? Have they dropped the ball?
You see, this is the problem that we are talking about. The Parliament institution, just like the executive, has certain legitimate powers that comes from the people. And just because the executive has absolute power, because of the monopoly of whatever state institutions, violence and so on, it seems like the executive in Kenya has always taken control, and that is the case as it is of Parliament. And when we are going for elections, the Speaker of the National Assembly comes from the ruling administration majority party.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for Parliament in a way to distance itself from some of the decisions that trickle down from the executive. This is why I'm saying that the Parliament must enjoy certain independence to an extent that they can be able to sit down and also sanction some of these people. We are talking of issues of VAT. Who brought this? It is an issue that was brought so that they can be able to fund the deficit in budget. How can the parliamentarians who are in the Jubilee Party majority and the coalitions that are there go against what has come from their own government? So if Bashir, indeed you're clear, let us look at what Parliament must do and what Parliament has as what we can call as very open ways of advancing some of these issues. Because when you say that Parliament has the power that it has, and it is enough for it to adjudicate over the issues of Kenyans, then we are lying to ourselves. Parliament, just like the executive, the president and most majority, the governance of the country, these are people who come from the people of Kenya. Indeed, Parliament is the body that enjoys the absolute legitimacy from Kenyans, because other positions within the executive, those CSs are appointed, but all parliamentarians, apart from a few, are elected. And so Parliament, essentially, and this is why this Montesquieu doctrine is
separation of powers.
Yes, of separation of powers, is in the current century. It doesn't in any way resonate with the circumstances of this century. And so I think Parliament, traditionally, even in Britain, was the strongest organ, and it must be here in Kenya.
Just let me say this. There's a time I had an opportunity of working in the National Assembly in the 11th Parliament. They are very powerful. They have an opportunity to legislate. They can amend any bill. They can reject bills. They can even force the president to assent to a certain bill. All they can do is just pass it 3 times.
Yes.
So they have certain number of powers. Only that they are not using those powers as they're supposed to be, number one. Number two, the only time we see our members of parliament doing a good job is just with the recent conversation with respect to VAT. We have not had or seen any good parliament that has been doing its job for the last 2 years, save for the recent conversation. And this conversation has taken place courtesy of the media. You know, it is the media that has shown the light on what has been happening with the Kenyans, the plight of Kenyans and all that. I think, Jesse, what I know is our parliamentarians have not been doing their role properly. If only they did, this country would have been different. We are in some of these situations because when you look at the constitution, no single tax can be imposed on the people of Kenya without parliamentary approval.
Yes.
One. Two, no single Kenyan shall have lacked unemployment today if they had taken their role properly. No student will have suffered courtesy of the CDF and the resource that is at their disposal. On the base of their powers. No county would have been functioning improperly while the Senate undertaking its oversight role properly. All we can say is our parliament, all it has done for Kenyans is just a lip service. If only it did 60% of it, so not even 100%, only 60% of what is expected of it, this country would have been different. We should not have been having a conversation of the president and his deputy not maybe performing for the people of Kenya. You know what you will see? You will see a senator retweeting your tweet about the plight of Kenyans. He is supposed to summon that cabinet secretary, pose the question, ask him why is this happening. I think for us, our parliament has actually failed us. And how do we change this? We change this at the ballot. We have the opportunity to audit who we elect, who we elect. Okay. I think I call on the Kenyans in the next election, let them do a proper audit on the people they elect. Our parliament, as it is, it has the powers, but the elements there are the bad ones. Let us do a good audit as we want. Let us have the good people.
The reflection
the Kenyan Senate.
Yes. Let's give him time to.
You see, that is very interesting, and let me also say that the head of executive remember the State House summits for some time, and there was one about corruption, anti-corruption. Then he was asked, and he said he's done all he could to empower these independent institutions, Jesse, and this is on record. The head of executive saying that ask them, they are here, and I have facilitated the independence of institutions, the investigating authority, but it's not going nowhere. And he threw his hand and said, "What do you want me to do? Unataka nifanye nini?" So I think look at that and hear that. We say that, of course, there are roles that the parliament needs to play in terms of providing oversight, but I think the moment we even begin to politicize investigation and make it political, it actually doesn't. It causes a danger of we the people of the Republic of Kenya should insulate these independent institutions from our elected representative that we elect. This is also very important for us also in retrospect, because I agree with Ngujiri that some of the members that we are electing are actually coming from people, and some of them have been amongst us who face the difficulty that we are facing, the vagaries of economy. And therefore it is hell-bent on our elected representative to ask and represent questions that would be asked by mama mbogas and people in the city. That is ideally what these people should do. But I'm perturbed simply because, like you said, and Wakili said, they are also worried. For example, how then would the taxes be levied minors, them being aware. There's a court case, about this issue that is ongoing, and lawyer Ken Omondi has put it, as petitioned. These are the High Court. And you're looking at the reasons for his petition is absolutely clear. That is questioning the role of Parliament in providing, how did the Parliament allow the Energy, Petroleum and Regulatory Authority to make a decision in terms of increasing the taxes, minus the participation. I believe each and every law, each and every initiative, and each and every decision the government make must not only be taken through participation of the executive, but I think there is a way even the citizens of Republic of Kenya must have their feeling and must have their say on some of these directives. And this forms a basis of unconstitutionality, not only for the Parliament, but even the executive and even the judiciary to reinterpret why did Kenyans not given time to participate on that kind of directive.
I'm looking at an editorial here. I don't know if you saw it on the Daily Nation, the cartoon showing members of Parliament sort of crying the crocodile tears when it comes to the kerosene, petrol and diesel issue in the country. As we finalize on this point.
On what my colleague has said, the people of Kenya always have had a say. And the say is, when a bill is brought, it goes through the committee stage, and that is the stage that the people shall be given an opportunity, the stakeholders. You can forward your email to the clerk. You can attend those sessions. It is just about visiting the website, look at the order paper, see which bill is coming before the House. Are you interested in it? Write to the clerk of the Assembly. You may have an opportunity of presenting on that. The other way that the people of Kenya have had an opportunity is to maybe petition the court. The law allows them to go to court, challenge a certain law. I think as the people of Kenya, we have tried, we have done enough, and there are good activists who have been the protector of the public interest for a while. I think the people are good. The executive and the legislator is the problem. The judiciary is good. That is my view, Jesse.
Well, Parliament has a chance to sort of redeem itself and resolve this whole issue.
I think for some of us might be there in future. Who knows? We shall have an opportunity of maybe changing the situation.
As well,
You see, the Senate of Kenya has proved indeed that they are the upper house. I have absolutely no doubt about that. They have overseen a process where several governors have been impeached. The other house, the lower house, has the capacity to sanction some of these cabinet ministers. But we've never seen such action. And so that means the guys in the Senate are the examples of whom all of us must revere and look up to as people who get into that house to be the eyes and ears of Kenyans. And that is the cause. That is the example. And that is how the state of affairs should be.
Speaking of impeached governors, well, what's happening in Northeastern? We see a standoff, and even funds have been stopped being pushed to that particular county. But what's the issue right now?
Yes, I think on the question of the funds being stopped, it is a court issue that there was a directive by the High Court. I think it is sub judice at the moment. We may not delve into that as much. But I think for me, I look at it this way. Who are the biggest victims? The biggest victims are the people of Wajir.
Exactly.
What is happening with the people? How are they surviving? That is the bigger problem. But I think when we look at this to the impeached governor and the new governor, I think when we look at them, one thing should come to our mind. If we allow an impeached governor to forcefully remain in office, this shall have an effect, a ripple effect on what shall take place in future. Whenever any governor is impeached in future, be it Kiambu, Marsabit, Turkana, or any other county, that impeached governor shall go the Wajir style and maybe bulldoze his way into office, break into governor's office and try and sit and take charge of that. But I think it's a big problem. For us, as the people of this country, we should keenly protect devolution. And the best way we protect devolution is look at the seat of the governor, see who is in our interest, see who the law allows to be on that office. I think for me, my advice to the people, because that's the county I equally hail from, is for the impeached governor, allow the legal discourse, the legal process to complete itself. Wait for the judgment. When you get the judgment, maybe the law shall take its effect. I think for the new governor, he should focus on the delivery to the people of this republic. On the part of the frustrated, or on the part of the monies that were sanctioned in a way by the High Court, let us allow that case to take effect, and I hope the best for the people of Wajir County.
Okay, gentlemen, I want us to shift focus to the independent institutions, particularly IEBC right now, who are set to embark on a 30-day voter registration exercise beginning the 4th of October. There are a couple of more developments in terms of what the IEBC body had to say just yesterday. Let's listen into that particular story since it's equally covered in today's dailies. There you go.
Deputy Commission Secretary.
The 2022 drumbeats are sounding louder by the day, and as the August 9th date approaches, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission (IEBC) says it is rushing against time to ensure it enlists more Kenyans to its register. Speaking during the Faith-Based Organizations Consultative Forum meeting, IEBC Chairperson Wafula Chebukati said all was set for the exercise that begins in October 4th this year.
We look forward to registering the 6 to 7 million unregistered Kenyans. All I want to say here is that those who want to be registered, please do so. All you need is have an identity card.
The exercise will entail the use of three PVR kits per ward, which will be rotated across visitation centers for 30 days. A ward-based PVR kit movement schedule will be prepared and shared with the local leaders and published by voter mobilizers.
During an exclusive interview with KTN News, Chebukati also revealed that the commission was targeting other Kenyans living in the diaspora by adding 6 more countries to the list of countries that had been given a green light to serve as polling centers.
We shall add the United States of America, Canada, United Kingdom, South Sudan, and Qatar. Those then meet the minimum requirements by the Commission of at least minimum 3,000 voters in each of those respective countries.
We are looking unto you that you will help us mobilize to get people to register as voters.
An estimated 3 million Kenyans live in the diaspora. However, majority of them, IEBC says, had not registered with their respective embassies to be allowed to vote.
Voting will be done the same way it is done here in Kenya. We shall send ballot boxes there with the ballot papers. Voting will be done, and then the results will be sent back.
However, the commission will be expected to deal with several bottlenecks before it embarks on that ambitious mission. Despite the challenges, it also maintains the election date will not be changed.
The Commission's funding has not been adequate, and in tandem with the electoral cycle, if you look at where we come from the last 3 years, we've been asking for funds to prepare for elections. And the first response we got was this financial year.
The religious leaders have now promised to mobilize their followers to register as voters, with the Commission keen on moving the voter register from the 19 million mark in 2017 to about 25 million mark by 2022.
There are even amongst us, the religious coordinating bodies that have already developed manuals to empower the citizenry of this country.
As the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, prepares to roll out a mass voter registration exercise in October this year, the biggest challenge for the Commission is to have enough money and manpower to facilitate that process. Emmanuel To, KTN News, Nairobi.
Well, more details of that particular story on page 4 of the Standard. The race to show up voter numbers as IEBC sets the date for registration. They are targeting 6 million new voters who they'll be hoping to add to the voter register. But as we talk about independent institutions, the IEBC has faced its fair share of political targeting. And let's start with the Commission's funding. Are we enabling these particular institutions to conduct a free, fair and credible elections? Because this is what Kenyans are hoping for. But are we enabling it financially?
Not really, actually.
Yeah.
I think IEBC has always shared its frustration. The chair has been clear about it. He has been telling Kenyans that the problem we are having as a commission is that we are not funded enough. And I think that is one thing that the IEBC has suffered. The other problem that IEBC has suffered is faith. The people have lost faith in a way in the commission. And how do we restore faith in the commission? We restore faith in the commission through those who are the political contenders. They tell their supporters, we have a lot of faith in the IEBC. Let us subject this election. Let the IEBC take charge of this election. If that happens, I think we shall have a good election. But I think, Jesse, one of the countries that I normally speak about with respect to its electoral commission, it is the Indian Electoral Commission. India has a huge population, and there was an audit that was done, a research, which shows that the people of India have always had a lot of faith in its electoral commission. as a people of Kenya, we can do a number of things and we cannot do a number of things. We can choose to avoid violence and we can choose to have faith in the IEBC. If we go that way, I assure you, come August 7th, 2022, we shall have a good election. Meanwhile, the IEBC has a lot of functions under the IEBC Act. Part of that is to undertake continuous voter registration, mass voter registration. But I think due to this lack of funding, the IEBC is forced to suspend that process, embark on it again, suspend it again. But I think ideally, the IEBC is supposed to be given enough funding to allow it and undertake mass voter registration. Jesse, I think each and every single Kenyan who has attained the age of 18 years should have an opportunity to vote in the subsequent election. And actually, I appreciate the IEBC. It has tried to even factor in those Kenyans who are the diaspora, you know, the likes of the 5 countries as he has mentioned. Yeah. These are our Kenyans. There is a big number of Kenyans, for instance, in South Sudan, who would have wanted to take part in the election. We should not force them to leave their work, come back to the country and vote. We should allow them take part in the voting process right from the comfort of where they are. I think if enough funding is given to the IEBC, I believe, shall have an opportunity to put in place enough infrastructure that shall enable the people of Kenya undertake the electoral process properly, and that will avert any electoral chaos that we shall expect in the subsequent election.
Okay, well noted. And it's actually 6 more countries being added in that diaspora list. Dan, let's talk about being a youth in this country. This is a youthful panel, and we expect out of this anticipated 6 million new voters to be added to the voters register, it might comprise mostly of the youth. So in terms of the voting patterns in the country, there's so much talk about issue-based politics. Do you think this will inform the youthful voter come 2022, even perhaps as you add your voice to the ongoing voter registration exercise that's set to start in October?
Well, let me also join the fray by saying that, you know, the independency of the electoral management body, IEBC, you know, has suffered a number of, you know, peak holes here and there. The history of the Electoral Commission in this country has been a history of unfaithfulness and lack of trust, and also antagonism each and every election. I think the fever pitch was reached in 2007, the Kivitu EACK Commission. But I appreciate, even in small, significant, that there's been an improvement in the performance of, you know, the electoral management body in this country, in the face of targeted political attacks, in the face of mistrust from you know, different interesting parties. But let me also say, before I, you know, answer this question, is it bequeaths the IEBC much of the commission to gain the trust, not only faith also, but also the trust of the citizens, is through the programs that they do, is through the initiative that IEBC is tasked with, courtesy to of the Constitution that are provided in the Constitution. I believe that even in the backdrop of an ongoing court case, I mean, Jesse, the IEBC was listed as, you know, as one of the respondents in the BBI case that is going on. The question about, you know, the composition of the commissioners. And right now, it's a full house. The commissioners are well constituted. And the Secretariat of IEBC is striking some semblance of competence in terms of delivery. And so I believe that these are steps that we as a citizen must appreciate, you know, that IEBC, through the difficult moments, are trying to restore public trust and, you know, communicate to the public that they conducted the well, you know, by-elections in Juja and, you know, the whole of Kiambu very transparently. You could see the pressure even from, you know, the so-called people that are allied to the party that is governing right now. But they stand by the commissioners to deliver free, credible elections. I think should communicate to the public on, you know, the future of IEBC when it comes to trust. You asked about the young people. The target, and if you realize and you look at the voting patterns and how IEBC arrived at, you know, the 6 or 7 million new registered voters, is by those who are attaining the age of, you know, 18 and above. As we speak, are many, and young people who can now gain the ID cards and register. You know, there's a difference between having an ID card and registering as a voter and voting. I think that is very different for young people. Just as we speak, there is an idea about massive voter apathy, especially amongst young people.
The youth, yeah.
You can realize that young people are making statements that, one, they do not believe in politics, and secondly, why would they vote? So it is important also, and what Bashir has mentioned, that also apart from IEBC's role as continuous merge registration, they're also tasked with civic education. This is also part of what constitutional IEBC should do. So I think even the importance is that IEBC should reach out and leverage through community organization, media and grassroots organizations to educate the citizens on the importance of voting, regardless of who you are going to vote.
Okay.
And even target young people and tell them. Because as we speak, the youth are the ones insignificantly thinking about not voting. What is the reasons of voting, and how can we persuade the young people to vote? Okay. So I believe that the numbers are outside there, but translating these numbers, especially young people, to having an ID card and registering and then turning out to vote, it's an happy task that needs to be done. Lastly, we have seen the audit, and I was reading the papers again, that one region, there is leading. One region who's their presidential, one of them is a potential presidential candidate in the upcoming elections. Nyanza regions, there is a number of ID that are lying that has not collected. I think it is within the public that it is important also for that region and other regions
as well,
to begin sensitizing those who have not picked the ID, to go and make a difference. Communicate to them that bad leaders are elected by good citizens who do not vote. It is important for people to know this and this. And I think this should be also the role of IEBC as an electoral management body. Okay. They are mandated to do that.
Okay. The trust issue when it comes to IEBC. Add your voice to this, because I know ODM party earlier on were targeting Wafula Chebukati due to that particular 2017 election. They've dropped that ball, but when it comes to the trust factor, have we built enough confidence in the IEBC to conduct a free, fair and credible election this close to 2022?
In the long years to come, and like it has always been, there will never be a time when people participating in a political process will have full trust in the arbiter. I mean, there will never be such a time. I think that, personally, I have never had issues with the current IEBC. I was in the Juja by-election, the one that Orogo just mentioned here, and I congratulate Professor Gulie. When she got an opportunity to speak, she told those that yield power, or rather he told those that yield power that, look at this. If we are going to attract as many people as possible during voting day, we must demilitarize elections. I mean, elections are an opportunity for Kenyans to go and cast their ballot and decide who leads them. This is not an exercise that is meant to recruit people into the forces. And so all of us must accept that for us to move forward as a nation and for us to build our democracy well, we must have a culture of trusting independent institutions. This is why the narrative that has always been peddled by people who want to place their vested interest in these independent bodies, that we don't have trust in these IBCs, it's constituted on those kind of things, must be killed before the 2022 elections. This has been the culture that has always bred tension in the country. And that is why the players in this contest must agree and decide that at the end of the day, nobody will be contented because the commissioners and the chairman are, I think, totaling to about 7 people, if I'm not wrong. You will not have your person there. You will not have if everybody was to have their person there, then we would be in a crisis.
Of course,
And so we must ensure that IEBC has an environment to deliver us a credible election. And at the same time, we also give them the required environment to do that. As politicians, let's go and campaign. The votes are not with Wafula Chebukati. IEBC and those that work for it have been under constant threats in the history of the Republic of Kenya. They are intimidated, arm twisting, and threat hawking has been happening in those corners. And that is why even those that are given the job of conducting these elections sometimes have a fear for their life. And this is a culture that the people of Kenya and the politicians in this country have to kill. Going into the 2022, let the players now get ready. Let them warm up. I will personally tell you that we are ready as UDA to participate in the elections.
Okay, well noted. Let me give the gentlemen a final chance for contributions. Daniel Orogo, as we finalize this pertinent discussion, so much to talk about, so little time. How do we finalize this?
Well, first of all, I'm just going to take a minute to say that we apologize for, and we condone with the people of Homa Bay who just, lost lives in the boat tragedy. So I think as a nation, let's condone with them and, ask people who are responsible to take track, of what's going on in that region. Lastly, also is important, as I do my kick, is important also to mention that the ANC party has unveiled a youthful secretary general, and I congratulate the party leader, and it should go on record. This is what other political parties should emulate. And today we are inaugurating Mr. Simon Gukuro as
I won't let you campaign on there. I think that's enough. Suleiman Bashir, Suleiman Bashir,
thank you.
As we finalize, what's your take, perhaps?
Jesse, there are two things you have mentioned. You had posed the question on the place of the youth in the subsequent election. Is it that as the youth, if we vote and vote wisely, can we do it in a way that will change our lives? That's one. The second thing is on the revelation of the local dailies that there are some youths who do not even collect their national identity cards. That tells you that without an ID, can someone get a job? That tells you a lot. So does that mean people have despaired? What can they do to change the things, to change the narrative? I think even as IEBC, because you had posed a very, very important question, even as IEBC goes out there to register the youth, all the potential voters, what as a voter you'll ask yourself is, if I register myself as a voter, am I going to take part in an election? If I take part in the election, will I vote a leader who will change my life? I think looking at the leaders that we're having as they are, I think that is what is making Kenyans lose hope in the leaders that they're having. That is what is making the youth not to collect their identity cards so that they vote and vote wisely. I think, Jesse, this is it. We can change this by voting wisely, voting on the basis of non-ethnicity, voting on the basis of ideologies. I think one of the things that we should do is to ask them to share with us their plans and manifestos and all that. Finally, what I want to also mention is, on the basis of the trust and faith that the IEBC, that the people of Kenya might have in it, the people have no problem with the commission. Only that what will happen is, even as we go towards the general election, some of the political party contenders, especially in the presidential race, might come to the people of Kenya and tell them, we have no faith in IEBC. And as the people, we are known to buy narratives and propagandas. That is the commission. That is the problem that has actually faced the commission. We call on all those who are the serious presidential contenders to ensure that the people have faith. Stop attacking the commission. Let us have good faith in the commission, and we shall have a good election.
Well noted, gentlemen. I think that's a proper footnote. Thank you so much for the fruitful discussion. I think we've added impetus to the day's headlines. So make sure you grab yourself a copy, either of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard and The Daily Nation, just to be up to speed with the latest developments. You know what they say, information is power. So, Ngunjiri, political analyst, thanks for your time. Daniel Orogo, who's equally an analyst, thank you so much. And Suleiman Bashir, it's always